Hi guys, I'm here today with Drew's very first true aide, Tracsaur, and she came to him about the second or third week of kindergarten.
Yes.
And so we love Miss Tracsaur, and we have so many good stories that we're going to get today because she knows all the ugly details. So I'm going to just start out right away with saying, tell me your first impressions of Drew when you first met him.
Absolutely adorable, cute as a button. I walked in, I seen him at ball games before, but when I walked in the classroom, I guess it was about 2 or 3 weeks into this kindergarten year, I walked in and there was a kid in a clothes basket. It was scary. It was different. It was scary because his lack of communication, of course, he didn't talk a lot, and so it was challenging to say the least.
And that's before you knew what all he couldn't eat and
Yes,
touch
yes.
and do.
The touch, yes, the eating, yes.
Were you, I know that I think it's okay to say with your own son that you had had some experiences with some special education type services
Yes.
for him. And so you had that education, but do you feel like you were prepared to handle what Drew was at the time?
Oh, it was a lot of prayer. The first week I even questioned God if that's what I was supposed to be doing. It was challenging. I mean, it was mentally exhausting because you wanted so much to help him, but he couldn't verbalize exactly what it is that he needed. Sounds, touch, sights, the kids, the texture of the carpet, smells. There were some days he would just sit in your lap and like rub your shirt, or that like your bra strap, almost just the inside of your shirt, and it was different. But having Caleb, it did kind of help me realize that not every child is the same as others.
Right. So in the beginning, was Drew ever physical with you? Was that a part of the process?
On the playground, yes. Whenever he didn't want to come off the playground, I would have to physically go up the jungle gym or something and physically carry him down. Of course, he would kind of kick or, not be, he didn't want to be touched, he didn't want to be moved, he wanted to stay there because he didn't understand it's time to go in. And so we slowly had to get into a system where we knew, but it took a couple of weeks for us to realize that.
At the time, would you say Drew was the most severely autistic child you had contact with?
Not the most severely autistic. I had worked previously in Texas with a 12-year-old that was nonverbal, that still needed toiletry help and things like that. The smallest autistic child, probably yes, because it was the learning process with him, but he was definitely probably, I wouldn't say the most extreme case, but the youngest case I had been around to the extreme that he was. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. The most severe at that age.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes total sense. What was your worst time with Drew?
When we first started doing math, he hated math. He loved music, he loved the alphabet, but math was not his strong suit, and he hated it.
Still isn't.
And so we would put the math paper on there, the bears on there to help him count. All of a sudden that paper would fly off, the pencil would fly off. So we would have to go, first this, then we can do the alphabet on the cookie sheet. First math, then cookie sheet. First math. You might say first math, then cookie sheet 3 or 4 times, even more so. Math was very challenging. It was hard, and the communication was hard because I talk all the time, and Drew was very not, at that time he didn't talk
Hardly
a
at
lot.
all.
He
Yeah.
would cover his ears or just shut down. So
What is your best time with Drew?
oh my gosh, one time it was bad. It was scary at the time, but Drew would always make you laugh. And everything had to be a song. Like when we crossed the road to go to the playground, we'd go, look left, look right, look left, look right, cross the road. It was just little things you would get to Drew by singing. But one time he was swinging and he decided, Tracsaur, let go of the swing, did a complete backflip out of the swing, landed on his head, went to the nurse. I was panicking. Drew was fine, but I was panicking. I was like, how? We never let go of the swing after that, just for the record. So
It's okay.
yeah, so I was like, oh.
Yeah, that I could have had.
Yeah, that was great.
Would you say that Drew changed your impression of autistic children by being his aide?
Yes. Oh my gosh, not every autistic child has a certain criteria. Where he might look at me in the eye one moment doesn't mean the other one will or will not. Each child is individual. Just because he didn't do this doesn't mean he's not autistic. And that's where so many people, it's not a cake pan that all of them can be meshed into. That's not how it is. And so many people have such a misconception of what autism is. And if it wasn't for his parents, for the people that was part of him, his group, I don't know how to say it, but his team, I don't know where he would be today.
I agree.
Because it really takes a village, even on the best of circumstances. But whenever you already have something almost going against you in a sense, and I don't mean that derogatory,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying when you're delayed, like my son was severely delayed, and that kind of prohibits him, or I don't know how to word it, but it already makes him where he can't do what other children do. But if he would have had early intervention like he did, and everything they said he couldn't do, he's doing to this day. And I think that's along with Drew. Drew's being pushed and he's being nurtured, but he's still being pushed in a nurturing way. And I think that's so important for almost all children, but especially children
with autism
Yes.
or a disability.
Yes.
I agree
Yes.
100%. I think that's the whole key.
Yes.
Is to quietly make sure that we have someone supporting, but someone pushing.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
yes,
Like,
and parents being the biggest advocates, because these are still our babies, and what you say needs to happen. I mean, a lot of us, if you don't know something, people need to be able to reach out to people. There's always somebody to ask, to lead, to
Yes.
guide.
yeah, to help others.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. Tell me what you think was Drew's biggest challenge to have to overcome to be able to be functional in the classroom environment.
With autism, a lot of times there's a sensory issue. We've already discussed that a little bit. That is still huge. I think, and also feeling safe. I think having somebody that he can kind of look to see if they can help or assist. Teachers are huge.
I was just going to say, to me,
teachers are so huge.
I've always said that with Drew, the make or break moment is the teacher
Yes.
and the aid that he has provided.
Yes.
Oftentimes in schools, they don't have enough funding, or they have issues with getting people to come work
Yes.
because they don't pay a tremendous amount for an aide's
Yeah.
position or a paraprofessional. And so I've always said you can't just fill any peg into the hole
No.
and expect that to work. It's got to be the right fit for the right child.
Yes.
And that even works. That's the same with teachers. I believe you can have a teacher that it will either help them go forward and be a success, or they
Yes.
will set them backwards
that
from
will
where
make
they
them
were.
regress, where
Yeah.
they doubt themselves. Or where they,
Yes.
yes, I agree.
And I think that your combination with Miss Bowman was,
I love her.
and the fact that God allowed 2 years of that to happen was absolute God thing to spur Drew to the next grade. I don't think if we hadn't had those 2 years that we would have had that success that we needed to have.
Yes.
Because by first grade, by the end of first grade, he was confident.
Oh, yes.
And that he was loved, accepted, was going to be fine, it was going to go okay. And unfortunately, we lost you in second grade.
Yes.
But I feel like you played such a tremendous role in his life that I've said it 100 times, I cannot repay you. And Amanda, I can't. I have no amount that will ever repay you, because you were my biggest assets and my biggest allies, and you believed in him and you believed in us, and you allowed us to make mistakes and you rolled with it. You allowed us to have meltdowns of our own.
Oh, we all did. We all did.
And give us grace, because we didn't know what we were doing any more than y'all knew what you were doing. We were all learning together
Yes.
how to help Drew be functional, and there's no guidebook, there's no manual.
And what goes for one doesn't
Is
always,
not the same.
No.
Yeah, and that's a big thing as parents who are watching this. If you're thinking your child has an autism diagnosis, possibly, your child might not do all the things that my son did,
Yes.
and they could still have an autism diagnosis.
Yes.
And I want everyone to understand that Drew is got some similarities that generally they all have, but it doesn't mean that their things are the same as his things.
No.
And so I just want to ask, do you remember when he was so big about the letters and the little ornery letter that was always getting into trouble that he was doing with his hands?
Yes.
Thinking about that the other day, that you would tell me that little letter that he would form with his finger was the letter that got in trouble all the time, and then he had good letters.
Yes. Oh, he was always, you know, even on our rough days, it was a blessing to be there. And I think, like I said, it was definitely God, because I had just received a phone call like that week before, and they wanted me to go work at the high school, and I said, Clean, it wasn't right. And then whenever I received that second call from the elementary, I said, that was it. I don't know. And then when I got there, like I said, whenever I saw him, like I said, there was a laundry basket, and I was just, it was wild. But it was one of the best learning adventures I have had. And just the privilege of working with parents and teachers that, in unison, the interest of the child is what mattered most. It wasn't a pride thing. It wasn't, because we was a hot mess. We was all a hot mess.
Yeah, all of us.
We was all a hot mess. But it was Drew that was the center of attention, that we had to focus on what was best. It might not have been what I agreed on. It might not have been what you agreed on. But it was what was best for him.
Yeah, because there were times that, like, I had this in, like, how I thought. And Miss Bowman was so good because she's such a lighthearted, happy spirit that she would just be like, now, Jennifer.
Yes.
And she would just tell me what y'all needed, and it helped me stay focused. There was an open dialogue and open communication.
Yes.
It is so critical. And without it, especially in those early intervention years, there's no way a parent knows how to help back up the teacher, help make adjustments in diet and allergy monitoring, because people don't realize a lot of allergy with autism, there's usually a secondary diagnosis. They either have seizures or they have allergies or they have something else with it. And unfortunately, Drew has allergies. That's his secondary part to his diagnosis. And your gut controls a lot of your behavior. And so if I didn't know that the behavior was bad, I didn't know how to watch for that allergy.
Yes.
And so when you and Amanda began to actually communicate those things with me, even on the times when we cheated with icing, that I knew, okay, well, he acted that way because we allowed him to have something, or we did this, you know, like when we had the fun day, the field day, and he got the cotton candy.
Oh my.
Well, his at-home therapist, Miss Bethany, she was like, I'm not coming next year on this day.
No, it's not
worth it. We did no therapy. He can't sit down.
But if y'all was to introduce something new to him at home, or maybe he got a hold of something even at home, which y'all are always really good about letting us know. That way we can do, okay, we got to watch out for this or that, and so that was huge in the importance of him. It wasn't about us at that moment. It was letting us know, well, you know, he ate this at the birthday party, or he got a hold of a pizza, or whatever, and that way we was informed what to look out for at school as well.
Right. It made a big difference, and I think that's a huge thing. Well, I don't really have any more questions. I appreciate you taking the time to
Jennifer,
come.
yes.
And anybody who's watching, I pray you have an aide that's like this lady, who keeps you happy, keeps you laughing, cries with you, is your advocate for your child with you. When you aren't there, when you feel scared, she's got your back. I hope every parent has that same person. Anyway, we love you, Miss Tracy. Thank you so much.
Love y'all too. Bye.
I miss you and I love you so much, Tracy. You know, if you weren't around, I would be struggling in first grade. And I'm so glad that you decided to be with me throughout the year of me, you know, being first grade size. So, anyways, thank you for loving and caring for me.